I never wanted a Sonic the Hedgehog movie, and that says a lot coming from a lifelong Sonic fan. Reason being not because there was bad video game movie adaptations, but because in the 2010s, it was really hard being a Sonic fan. It wasn't something that you can openly discuss because there was a lot of people who blindingly hated Sonic for little to no reason. I'm not kidding when I say that someone stopped talking to me because I said I liked Sonic. So if there was a movie coming out, Sonic would once again be in the limelight. And it sure as hell was not helping when that first trailer came out with that atrocious first design of Sonic the Hedgehog. But in an awesome, weird way, this actually united the internet to let the studio know, hey, this is terrible, please change it, and the studio did, with an unfortunate consequence. But that new design, oh, nice. So here we are, we're 3 movies in, and a TV show. How was the first 2 movies of Sonic the Hedgehog? We'll start with the first one. It's good. I like it. Honestly, it's not something that I would have pictured for there being a Sonic movie. I thought if there were to be a Sonic movie, something I wanted to see, and something I would have loved to have made if I were to make a Sonic movie, I would have made it similar to the Saturday morning cartoon in the Archie comics, where you have the Freedom Fighters going up against Dr. Robotnik, you know, the roboticizers and all that. Like, that stuff's cool. And I feel like it would have been a big enough epic, something similar to Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, that people could have been like, oh, that's kind of cool. Or they could have joked about it like Aquaman, but hey. But for a movie like this, something small and something more or less grounded, it's a really good start. The stories that Sonic is hiding on Earth because people want his power, but then after an emotional outburst that he had, which led to a power outage due to his powers, led to a manhunt, he felt like he had to leave Earth in order to stay safe. So with the help of Tom, they drive across country, so it's a road trip movie, to find Sonic's rings that he accidentally dropped through the warp ring that Sonic was going to use to travel through worlds when he met Tom. I actually felt it was necessary to have the movie made the way it was because it allowed us to be introduced to Sonic as well as Dr. Robotnik by having this movie to be mostly character focused, which I really liked. The things that I wasn't too crazy about was the locations, more or less. I mean, the beginning when it shows Sonic as a kid, like running around through Green Hill Zone, like actual Green Hill Zone, not the small town, the actual place that we are familiar with from the Genesis games, it was really cool. But a lot of the time, we're just kind of like focusing on the world, which again is not something that's abnormal or something that's new to the Sonic franchise. As you know, we got Sonic X, and even if you want to count Sonic Adventures 1 and 2, where we do explore Earth in all of its glory. And of course, even Sonic Unleashed, we can't forget about that game. But still, I would have liked to have seen more of the different zones that we're familiar with of the planet Morbius. But this was probably due to a budget reason, of course. But I liked it nevertheless. I liked Sonic, and even though some dialogue is a bit cringe, I really hate the name Donut Lord. I feel like that's ran its course. I hate that it's still in Sonic 3. I like Sonic's friend Tom. He's nice. He's a good guy. I like that they develop more of not only a friendship, but more of a father-son relationship as the series goes along. I like his wife, Maddie. They're very wholesome people that I definitely felt that the acting really elevated the characters. I really love what this movie, as well as the other movies, do with Sonic's character. They perfectly captured the essence of who Sonic is, showing his optimistic, childlike, carefree personality that we know and love from not just the video games, but also from the TV shows, while also maintaining its own identity that makes it stand alongside the other Sonics. Not just through the writing, but also the fantastic voice work of Ben Schwartz. Sonic in this case feels more like a kid, as he's usually 16 in the video games, or at least it was for at least, like, what, 10 years? Sonic in the games, yeah, he's very playful, but he acts so mature to the point where you forget that he's supposed to be a teenager. Whereas Sonic in the movies, you can tell that he is a kid, not just through design, but from how he acts. I love how the movie actually has a creative spin as to how Eggman keeps up with Sonic through his supersonic speed, by using one of Sonic's quills to harness his power to power up his machines so he is capable of tracking Sonic down. In the video games, it was just assumed that Sonic would just lower his speed on purpose, because if he's too fast, how is he going to accurately hit his targets, especially if he runs past them? Kind of like in that scene in the Arrow Flash crossover, Elseworlds, where Oliver Queen has Barry's powers, and so naturally he doesn't know how to use it, and this happens.
Hey, pump the brakes. You're gonna have to hang a Yui because you passed Ivo by about 18 blocks. Found it! Someone's excited to get to work.
Or he's just playfully cocky and just gives Eggman a head start. I don't know how anyone can think that Eggman's just naturally faster than Sonic. Why would Eggman need a fucking machine if he could just zoom past him and just obliterate him? But I like that the movie kind of like gives a unique spin to everything. I really like it, and it also ups the stakes by having Sonic go up against a powerful enemy. Someone that can actually keep up with him through his intelligence is very exciting and a good way to tell a story, especially for a movie. And it really shows that Dr. Robotnik is not someone to fuck with. And you can't talk about Sonic 1 without talking about Dr. Ivo Robotnik himself, Jim Carrey, who was a scene stealer. I mean, he really brought so much energy. I mean, it's Jim Carrey, you expect that of him, but man, like, you give him a role and he doesn't half-ass it, which is nice. Like, I mean, he could have phoned it in just to get a paycheck, but when he commits, which is always nice to see. I mean, it's always fun to see Jim Carrey in a villain role. I mean, Batman Forever. I like Batman Forever, and I'll talk about that someday. But even then, I feel like some people would argue that it's the same, but like, I just feel like Robotnik is more egotistical and more socially awkward, if that was even possible, than the Riddler. Hey, look at him. He looks like young Dexter in a wig. But again, seeing Dr. Eggman in live action was something I've always wanted to see, and I felt like Jim Carrey really brought it home. And again, when he commits, especially that bald look that he gave at the end. And I really do love that, like, not only was it an origin story of Sonic the Hedgehog, but also of Dr. Eggman. I mean, throughout the 3 movies, you see the evolution of Dr. Robotnik to Dr. Eggman, which is abundantly clear through his wardrobe changes. I still really enjoy watching this movie. This is a lot of fun, especially the barroom scene, which was great. I love how they replicate. I'm glad that, like, Sonic not only replicated the Quicksilver scenes from Days of Future Past and Apocalypse respectively, but also made it its own. It was really fun seeing him run around and just commit chaos as much as he could to the bar patrons. And again, I really felt that the movie was wholesome. It was unexpectedly wholesome. The fact that, like, Sonic was alone and how much that greatly emotionally impacted him, which is nice to see in a movie like this, to add a little heart, to pull at your heartstrings, which is great. That's always a good thing to add in your movie. And then to have an emotional payoff at the end when Sonic is allowed into Tom's home, and again, is technically an adopted son from Tom. And while I do like the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, I love its sequel even more, because all the itches that I was just so desperately wanted scratched, this movie scratched the hell out of it. It gave me everything I wanted to see. There was more environments to go to, which felt more like Sonic, whether those environments that are similar to ice cap zones, or this hell of a mystic maze that we see towards the end of the film, and of course the introductions to the Chaos Emeralds, which I like that the movie had a new twist to it, where they combined the Chaos Emeralds and the Master Emerald, and just had the Chaos Emerald form into the Master Emerald, so that was kind of neat. And one thing I want to get out of the way real quick, while I still think Jim Carrey's great, I don't feel like he's as good as he was in the first one. That's the one thing I felt like the first movie had over the second one, was the performance of Jim Carrey. I felt like he was more refined in the first one, whereas in the second, he just kind of exaggerates himself, kind of similar to Batman's voice, where I felt like in Batman Begins, Christian Bale did a perfect job with having this like whispery tone.
Falcone sent them to kill you. They were splitting the shipment in 2.
It's not who I am underneath, but what I do that defines me.
And then in The Dark Knight, he's just like, oh God, that fucking hurts. But in hindsight, it actually makes sense why he's more exaggerated and more hyper in the second movie, because he was on a mushroom planet for a year, having no one to talk to, and except having his own version of Wilson, aka Agent Stone. In hindsight, it makes sense. But talking about more about positives. In this one, Sonic is actually stepping into more of a hero role. I love that beginning where we first meet up with him and he's trying to stop a robbery of sorts. He's basically like embodying his Batman role, which is great. great. I mean, that whole action sequence was a lot of fun, and I thought that was wonderful. And then his relationship with Tails, like meeting up with Tails after the grand return of the awesome Dr. Robotnik alongside with Knuckles. I really love Sonic and Tails' relationship. I like that. I thought it was interesting how they got the voice actress from the games to return in this role, whereas they got Idris Elba for Knuckles. I mean, hey, I'm not complaining. I really love Idris Elba as Knuckles. I like how dim-witted he is, because one thing that Knuckles is in the video games is he's a bit gullible. That's how Eggman was able to trick him, because Knuckles is gullible in the sense that he does see the good in others. So it was interesting to see this in this movie, but it was fun to see how Knuckles in this version has more of a warrior dumbness to him. I like how it's similar to Knuckles in the Sonic Boom series, where he's a bit of a meathead, but done differently. But Sonic and Tails' relationship, I felt, was very wholesome. I mean, it really got me in a few scenes where they're just having bonding moments, which was awesome. Although one thing I will say is I do get really annoyed when Tails was like,
only Sonic the Hedgehog could win a dance battle that epic. Only Sonic the Hedgehog could come up with something like that. Only Sonic the Hedgehog needs rescuing this much.
Otherwise, I really love Tails. I love how supportive he is. He was in the same boat as Sonic was in the first movie, and how they kind of bonded over their shared isolation, and how that also comes around when Knuckles joins the team. I just really love that whole scene where they just reconcile, how Knuckles realizes that Sonic is not the enemy, and how like they both lost people that they love. And it was just interesting from that perspective of like, you have two young men who are just caught in the middle of some kind of conflict. It wasn't their fault, and they were just fighting each other without truly understanding why they were fighting in the first place. Not that there was anything to understand. I mean, it wasn't their fight. It wasn't something that they had their heart or their emotions set on. They were just basically repeating the cycle. So having them have a heart-to-heart and then reconciling and then becoming family at the end with a nice baseball game was amazing. The action is really nice. Oh my god, it was so action-packed. It felt more like a Sonic movie, like this time around. I mean, there's so many things about it that I just truly love. I mean, yeah, it does help that Tails and Knuckles are in the movie, but man, I just really loved how much energy this movie had, and so much was just going on that I really thoroughly enjoyed it. And then when it did shift focus to the humans like Maddie and Tom and Maddie's sister, I was not complaining. I actually found a lot of humor in it, especially with the gun agents, which I thought was funny. I had an amazing time with this movie. I mean, I love this movie so much. And I was thoroughly happy that not only were we getting a third with Shadow, but that Jim Carrey was returning, which I have no idea how much that meant to me. But I'm really happy that these movies were made. They were so much fun, and honestly, like, I wouldn't mind more than 3, but if it ends with just 3 movies, I think that's a really satisfying trilogy. I really do. And it just keeps getting better and better and better. It reminds me a lot of the Tom Holland trilogy, where throughout the entirety of the trilogy, you see Spider-Man become Spider-Man. So in this case, the Sonic trilogy is more of an evolution to see the world around Sonic become the world that we know and love. Or in this case, Sonic to become Sonic the Hedgehog and Robotnik to become Eggman. It's really great stuff. And I look forward to see where the future holds, where it takes us. If we get a Shadow show, I am excited for that. We get more movies with certain characters, I'm excited. I really am excited, and I'm really happy that other people are excited as well, that people actually enjoy these movies as well. And that made me happy. That's the best thing that I love about these movies, is it got other people to enjoy something that's Sonic related. And I haven't heard a lot of people shit on these movies, which is nice. I know there's a few here and there, but not as much as I was expecting. And you know what? After we talk about the live action Sonic stuff, we have got to talk about the first Sonic the Hedgehog movie, the Sonic OVA. Oh, one of the hallmarks of my childhood. But if you like the video, like and subscribe. Tell me your thoughts about Sonic, and I'll see you on the next video.